I do want to take you out to this post right here as we go international at this point. This is from the US Special Envoy, Steve Witkoff, as he and US Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, visited Gaza and the humanitarian aid distribution sites just yesterday. He posted that photo right there of them in that location on the left-hand side of your screen. But moments ago, the Hamas terror group condemned that visit to Gaza by Witkoff. In a statement obtained by the Times of Israel, Hamas also vowed not to disarm, quote, as long as the occupation exists, end quote, and until there is a fully sovereign Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital. The statement does come hours after Witkoff told the families of those held hostage by the terror group that Hamas says it is ready to demilitarize. Hamas now calls Witkoff's visit to the humanitarian sites in Gaza, quote, nothing more than a prearranged theatrical performance. A lot to discuss here, so I do want to bring in a friend of the show. We have Harley Littman, a foreign policy expert. He does serve on several advisory boards, including at Yale and Columbia, and is a board member of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, the Middle East Forum, and at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He's a busy guy, so thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And is there any kind of dispute there? You do have Hamas saying that Witkoff is not telling the truth. Is there any kind of question that there would be some kind of condemning of what Witkoff had to say?
I think Witkoff and Huckabee are showing exceptional courage and concern for humanitarian interests of the Palestinians and Israeli security. It's quite remarkable for two officials to go into a war zone that's dangerous and be there for 5 hours to be able to evaluate the situation.
Any sort of surprise, as I mentioned, Hamas is saying that essentially what Witkoff had to say about demilitarization, basically Hamas is coming in and saying, that's not what we said. We're not going to do that. And they call all of this a, quote, theatrical performance. But as you mentioned, Witkoff and Huckabee going into a war zone to take a look at the humanitarian aid sites, that is dangerous.
Yes, I think it's quite clear that Hamas does not want to negotiate and have a ceasefire. I'm just listening to the list of demands you created, which are unrealistic. So they would never be accepted by any Israeli government ever. It's basically calling for the dismantlement and the destruction of the state of Israel in what they're saying. So they're not serious. And what they've done is they've recently shown videos of a hostage who's so emaciated. He looks like someone out of Auschwitz, an extermination camp. So the question is, why would they show that? And I think there are two reasons. One is to get to play psychological warfare by getting the hostage families very upset. And then the hostage families, in turn, will put even more pressure on Israel to get their loved ones out. So that's one reason why they're doing it. Second reason why they're doing it is because they're showing the world that, and they're showing Israel in particular, that no one cares about Israeli hostages. That the only time you see demonstrations is when Palestinians are suffering. But when Jews or Israelis are suffering, you don't hear a sound anywhere. So it's a cynical statement of we command the high ground here, and we're winning the propaganda war, the public relations war, and we're going to continue doing this.
What is the reasoning behind the fact that Hamas believes that it is winning that propaganda war? Because you have a lot of people in the U.S. Specifically who are saying that there is that starvation, there's that famine in Gaza, and you also have folks there who are saying essentially that Israel, they've claimed, is using food as a weapon against the people in Gaza. So why does that kind of dispute there exist when it comes to this quote-unquote propaganda war?
Well, the world is blaming Israel for starvation in Gaza. And it's not true. Even the UN has finally admitted that most of their trucks, and we're talking about hundreds, have been taken by armed gangs, which are obviously code for Hamas. So they admitted it. They're taken over by armed gangs, which are Hamas or Islamic Jihad. And what they do with the food is they give it to their fighters in the tunnels. Hamas has released videos. This is all very easy to verify. They've released videos showing Hamas fighters in the tunnels, showing ample food, showing them eating it and enjoying it, all different kinds of food. And it showed them to be particularly in good shape. Nobody was thin or looked hungry. So they are then taking the food and selling it at exorbitant prices to poor Palestinians. They're gouging the Palestinian people because they basically run out of money, and this is their largest revenue. So they're going to do everything to try to control the food distribution in Gaza. And that's what this is all about. Now, there is an organization, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is made up of Israelis and Americans, that have given over 10 million meals. The media doesn't talk about this. They have no agenda. They're just trying to feed the Palestinian people. I'm even thinking of going over there to help in this regard. This is a purely humanitarian effort to be able to get food to the Palestinian people. And when Hamas has been going through negotiations with Israel, their number 2 demand is that this organization, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, would be disbanded because they feel threatened by it. They're more afraid of this than they are of the Israeli army, because whoever controls food controls Gaza. So they want to control the food. And that's what this is all about. And sadly, the world is blaming Israel. And it just shocks me and saddens me to see this. Even the Arab League has condemned Hamas and said that Hamas should disarm and accept the ceasefire so that people could be fed. Even the Arab League, what does that tell you? Hamas is responsible for starvation. It's also part of their strategy because they think that it's glory to die by annihilating infidels in Muslim land. So they don't have a problem with Palestinians dying. They actually want Palestinians to die because then it gets momentum for support for their cause and gets people drawn against Israel.
All right. Harley Lippman, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and speak a little bit about the situation that is taking place there in the Middle East. A lot of developments, especially over the last several hours as we get that statement from Hamas on the visit from Steve Witkoff and Mike Huckabee. Obviously, there's a lot going on. Is there anything else that you want to add about any of this here before I let you go?
Just that I think that the European nations that have called for a Palestinian nation are responsible for starvation in Gaza because this has given opportunity for Hamas not to negotiate with Israel. Why should they negotiate with Israel when they feel the European countries could make Israel give concessions? Why should Hamas make those concessions themselves when they feel they have a good chance of getting it from Israel? Because the world is putting pressure on Israel. So they may be well-intentioned, but they're they're enhancing and creating starvation by giving hope to Hamas to hold out.
All right. Harley Lippman there. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to join us and help break it all down. We appreciate it.
Thank you.